on Strategic Action Plan for Electoral Reform by the Electoral Commission. He is Mr. S.V. Singham from Tindak Malaysia. Just a bit of background on him. Mr. S.V. Singham moved up the ranks in semiconductor manufacturing. Then he retired from full-time employment to dabble in training and consultancy, and is now enjoying semi-retirement as a financial planner. He became an active polling, counting and borough agent, and he is also the election agent trainer for the 13th general elections. All in all, he's an ardent supporter of active civil society participation in the socio-political maturing of our nation.
That's all right. You all know that the United States formed a very interesting organization together with the states of Europe, which was called the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. NATO in Malaysia means something else. In Malaysia, NATO means no action, talk only. So it's important for us to have some kind of an action plan. And this is what, when PY asked me whether I could develop a strategic plan, he actually sent me a PDF document that was done by the South Africa Electoral Commission. They had actually developed a very nice strategic plan, which has been in effect for the past 3 years, and it should be completing about now. And he asked whether I could do something similar for our election commission. I took a look at what the South Africans had done, and I decided that we're quite far from there, so we have to do a slightly different strategy, and that's what I'm going to talk about. We first need to set the stage. Before we can do any reform, one of the most important things we've got to do is make sure that our election commission abides by a very important constitutional requirement, public confidence. The BRS proposal talks about it being unbiased and so on, but that's for the next constitution, that's the future. For the moment, we talk about what is in the constitution right now. The election commission must enjoy public confidence. And I'm sure you agree it does not, so that's one of the things we must do. We think replacing the election, whatever discussion and so on, should be able to accomplish in 6 months. Actually, it can be done sooner than that, but let's not be too ambitious. I think 6 months is a fairly decent time to do that. Then, in parallel with that, those amendments that have been proposed by BRS for the federal constitution, plus all the related legislation, because just changing the constitution alone is not going to be enough. There's a lot of related legislation that needs to be done. We need to work actively on that. As was pointed out, the persons in BRS, none of them are lawyers. I was also part of the group that did the initial discussion. None of us have got a legal background. Based on what we read in the constitution and using our command of the English language, we kind of made some suggestions. But this has to be vetted by professionals. They have to do this work and do all the associated related legislation. And we think maybe 12 months is a fairly decent period. Why? Because all the stakeholders need to get engaged in this process. They must be involved in the discussion. We can't do something and then expect people to buy in. They must be part of the process. And if there are disputes between stakeholders, we're going to fall back on the constitutional legitimacy of the claim. That's the priority. That's the basis on which we can resolve issues between stakeholders. So we think 12 months is a fairly decent period for that. Following which these amendments need to be presented, approved, implemented, and that should take another 6 months. So all in all, we think probably a time frame of 18 months should set the stage for the reform that we're talking about. Because if these things are not in place, we can talk and talk and talk, but we can't take much action. So, and this, let me see if I get this right, is the overall plan that I have. You know, the font is too small, don't expect to read it. I'm just putting it there for you to get an overview of what I'm talking about. And I want to focus on this area. These are the 3 points that we talked about here. Let me see, where's the, this is it, right? Yeah, there we go. Okay, these are the 3. So the first one, 6 months here, and then 12 months in parallel, and finally another 6 months, and we are there, ready to move to the next stage. And the next stage is going to involve what we call immediate implementation, things that simply fall into place the minute the legislation is in place, because with the legislation in place, there's nothing more to be done. The legislation is there, just roll it up. For example, the Yang di-Pertuan Agong is no longer bound by advice from the PM on matters relating to election commission, boundaries commission, ombudsman, anything relating to elections, the PM is, the Agong is no longer bound by advice from the PM. That means he should take the related input from whatever parties are according to the amendments to the Constitution. Okay, and that's going to be there. All of those are going to be immediate, right? And then we go on to this one. The MP or senator who resigns from his political party shall resign as MP or senator immediately. This is one issue. They say people here are still voting according to party. So if a person is voted to office, it's not because he was a great politician or orator. It's because he belonged to such and such a party. And that's a fact. So if you resign from the party, then you owe it to the people to resign your position and let somebody else get elected. And if you are the person, if you are the person who got elected and not the person, then allow you to stand for election immediately. And if you are the person, then you get voted back, not an issue. Actually, this was not a problem back then. You have to see that. This one, it came about because of, you know, Johor Bahru, right? One of the MPs resigned and stood for election again as an independent, and he won, because of which the ruling party lost the seat. So because of that, they amended the Constitution, preventing this from happening. That's not right. So this should be restored. A person cannot be elected to more than one position. This also can be done immediately, and then we've got another. No election. Okay. If a person has got a 5-year term, and then he resigns or for whatever reason drops out, any replacement only serves until the end of that term, right? Which is fine. You got 2 more years, that's fine. You got 1 more year, then what's the point of electing somebody back again? Right, so the final year of term, no need for re-election. Just leave it vacant and fill it when the next cycle comes around. Now we've got the situation where strictly when the opposition leader or somebody calls for a vote of no confidence, the speaker is supposed to call for a vote of no confidence, but this is not in legislation. So it's up to the speaker to decide whether that's not a valid, I'm not even going to entertain the claim. That kind of thing can happen. We would like this put in legislation so that this becomes part of the system. As pointed out, we have no real mention who is opposition leader, what is his role. What is the role of the political party? None of this is in legislation. It's good if these things can go into legislation. And this was also mentioned, regulatory powers of the EC to extend to including. Right now, we've got a situation where the Pakatan Rakyat cannot register as a coalition because the Register of Societies does not accept them. That kind of thing. We want the Election Commission to actually take charge of all of that. Alright? Okay, within the 24-month imperative, this is imperative, this is something that must take place because otherwise we're going to be stuck. And this one is here. These are the things that need to start immediately and then proceed within the 24-month period. These things need to be completed. The first thing is very sensitive. There will be a lot of discussion about it. Restoring the original seat quota of the Borneo states. Tindak Malaysia has got one opinion, other people have got other opinions. It does not matter. The final thing is, there's something that's done about this. Whatever it is, some consensus has to be reached, because if there is no consensus on this, then moving forward is going to be a difficult thing. We talked about 25 seats becoming 26 for Sabah and 38 seats for Sarawak. Of course, we also know that the same issue applies in the peninsula. We've got all of this. If you try to address all of this, you're not going to be able to do it in this period, I'm afraid. So this is maybe better left for the Boundaries Commission to take care of. So for the time being, we simply focus on these areas, try to get this resolved so that we are ready for the next thing, which is actually even more important, and this is the constituency delimitation, 1 person, 1 vote, 1 value of equal weight for each region. We've talked about this before in specific examples. In the case of Peninsula and Labuan, for GE13, the smallest constituency in the Peninsula was 16,000 voters, the biggest was 144,000 voters in Kapar in Selangor. For GE12, the Kapar had about 112,000. Putrajaya only had 6,000 something voters. That was like 17 times, which is ridiculous. I mean, it doesn't make sense. Your 1 voter, 1 counting is totally out of proportion. And this is our proposal. We've taken the average. We've taken the mean here and did plus 10 minus 10 for Peninsula. For Sabah is like that, and for Sarawak is like that. All of these need to get done, because if we don't do it, the election commission is going to do it. And if the election commission does it and we're not prepared for it, it's going to go into effect, and there's nothing you can do about it. So what can we do about it? People have already talked about it. We've got to, first of all, get our response to them. We've got to object. We've got to object and say, listen, we don't accept it. If you've got enough persons per constituency, 100 objectors per constituency, the election commission has to listen. And you say, okay, you object, so what do you want to do about it? Do you have a response? You don't have a response. You just stop them with nothing to say about it. They say, in which case, we just go. If you want to start working on it at that time, you're going to run out. Because 24 months, the minute this is gazetted, it's got to be completed in 24 months. And we must not forget that the Sarawak state election is coming pretty soon. Okay, the Sarawak state election, if you look at this, I have marked it there. Sarawak state election is due in April of 2016. So they will try to get it before then, if they can. Because they don't want to use the current electoral rule. They don't want to use the current delimitation. They want to change, as was pointed out, they want to change the new one. They're trying to get it done. If we don't have a response, it's not going to move. We can only stop them without having any response. Now, 9 months from amendments, these are the things that we need to do. This Ombudsman Office and the guidelines for caretaker government, which is also mentioned, which need to go forward. I'm going to the next one. I'm talking about automatic voter registration. This is one of the things we talked about, which is, we think, important. Because a person is eligible to become a voter, has to register, and then sometimes the registration process gets stuck here and there, and the person does not know whether he's eligible or not until it's too late. He finds out he's not been registered, then he scrambles to register, finds out it's the wrong constituency, all kinds of problems happen. So if voters registration is automatic, if you're eligible, you become a voter, that's the easiest solution. But in order to do that, firstly, we need to have the MyCards tidied up. You know what the problem with the MyCards are, right? I've got a real mess of it. First of all, the National Registration Database has got a lot of dubious voters on it, and we've got non-citizens carrying MyCards around. This needs to be cleaned up, and then the electoral roll itself needs to be cleaned up. We've got discrepancies there, we've got duplicate voters, we've got people in strange constituencies. We've got a person registered state in one constituency, parliament in another constituency, all kinds of funny things. All of these need to be straightened out. And then, when this is straightened out, then we can go for automatic voter registration based on eligibility. Okay? And we think that the first part of it, the cleaning up of the NRD database, will take about a year. And following that, in the next 1 year, that means within the 24 months, we should be able to get ready for a rollout of biometric voter validation. Meaning to say, we don't need to use the edible ink anymore. We can use your MyCard, insert the MyCard into the machine, and the MyCard verifies who you are by placing a thumb on it. Your identity is validated, and the MyCard is able to check across the national network, check on the database, validate that you are a voter, mark on the database that you have voted. So that you don't have to have your finger mark to show, or you don't have to sign, and you cannot go to another polling station because you also registered in 2 places. You know, that kind of thing can be straightened up. And there is divided opinion here about whether we should use the MyCard as a biometric validation, or the election commission has to issue its own biometric card. Now, if the election commission is going to issue its own biometric card, then the question of automatic voter registration does not arise anymore, because election commission still has to register the voters and validate their eligibility and then issue the biometric card, which means there's no more automatic voter registration. So if you want automatic voter registration, we have to fall back to using the MyCard. But if you don't have confidence in the NRD database, then we have no choice but to have a secondary database managed by the election commission, and they have to issue their own biometric ID. Right? And if we can get this in place, this is a 24-month thing. If we can get this in place, this gives us the possibility of going one more step, and that is what I call voting from any location. Okay, this is a dream for the future, so this is definitely not in the 24 plan, this is definitely not in our strategic plan, this is just my idea of what we can do. Visualize, for instance, today is polling day, but I'm here, this is New York, I'm here in New York City, talking to a group of people. How am I going to vote? I can go to US Embassy and vote, but then I don't trust the system, and then I'm not registered as a absent voter, whatever. If we have any location voting, all I have to do is go to that polling machine that's provided, insert my card, the card will validate my identity, pick up from the electoral database my constituency information, and then disconnect from that database, go to the database of my constituency, pick up my vote and put it into that database. Then my vote is done. So I can be from anywhere in any location. I can still vote for my own constituency. I do not have to vote for some other strange constituency. Which means even if I have to travel within the country, I can still vote. This is something which is for the future. It's just an idea which can happen if we go for biometric voter validation. Right? Now, after the amendments are done, the things that we need to do, these are the things that have to be done after the amendments are done. We've got to set up a Boundaries Commission. This is important. Boundaries Commission is important, but if we start to work on this now, other things are going to get delayed. So I think the Boundaries Commission is something we work on after we've got other issues sorted out. Once the Boundaries Commission is in place, then they can talk about the resolving of the seat allocation in Peninsula, and if at that time Sabah Sarawak has not been resolved, they can also take over that. And once they've resolved that reallocation of seats, they can talk about redoing the maps and so on. There's a lot of work to be done, so we can defer the actual formation of the Boundaries Commission to a later date. Elected local councils, this is very important. Somebody talked about increasing the number of ADUN seats so that the people have more people to complain to. The thing is this, a lot of people don't understand the role of MP and ADUN. MP is called a lawmaker. ADUN is supposed to be sitting in a state assembly managing the governance of the state. But instead, they become the people to whom you run to because your road has got a pothole, your drain is blocked or whatever. The thing is, the local councillors are the ones who should be handling your longkang and your lalang issues. But because local councillors are not elected, local council is being used as a mechanism for the parties to reward party loyalty. So the voters have got, whom do they go for? Your elected representative is your ADUN or your MP. So you saddle your ADUN and MP with this kind of unnecessary problems. Whereas if you have your local councils, the local council is going to take care of the local issues. And that will liberate your MPs and ADUNs to focus on governance issues, which is what they should be doing. Okay? And to continue the process, see, the thing is, democracy comes from the Greek words demos kratos, which means people power. People power is not about people demonstrating on the streets. People power is not about writing petitions and things like that. People power is about the people being engaged in the process of governance. And how do the people get engaged in the process of governance? Is by what I talk about, having regular consultation between the elected representatives and the people. So for every constituency, we have the MP, we've got the ADUN from the state constituencies, we've got the local councillors, together with, from each location, you've got the people coming there together every 2 months or every 3 months, whatever, regular period. And this meeting is for the people to bring up the issues, for the elected representatives to talk about what's happening with government, for them to exchange views, so that the people continue to remain engaged in the process of governance. If you can do that, then we've got demos kratos. Otherwise, what we do, we elect the people, and then for 5 years we go to sleep, they go do their own thing, come back later 5 years, we complain, and then we try to vote for somebody else, but there's nobody else to vote for. That's not democracy. Democracy, you must get engaged in the process. We are starting now, we're trying to get people engaged in the process, understand the process, and this is one of the things we need to do. We need to get the local councils elected so that they become part of the process, bring the process of democracy back to the people. This used to be in place, it was removed, we must bring this back. We need a more independent Senate which is elected through indirect proportional representation. You've heard about that. We talk about extending the Senate term. Why? Because if the Senate is appointed through indirect proportional representation, meaning to say we use the results of the general election to see which party has got what kind of popular support and use that as a basis to appoint, then the senator term must also coincide with that general election, which means it's got to go 5 years. If it's 3 years and then the Senate term expires, then how do we renew that? It's going to go out of sync. So we are proposing a 5-year term for the senators as well. We need more rigorous and transparent procedure for moving seat distribution across states. Right now we are stuck. The way the constitution is written is stuck. We cannot change anything. So we need the transparent ability to make changes there. Referendum, we talk about referendum. How do we do a referendum? You try to make a proposal referendum, people say you got no local standing for that. We have to have a basis clearly defined so that it can be done. Similarly, we talk about a direct election. I mean, right now we're talking about using the results of a general election to give the party the right to nominate senators. What about the people voting the senators directly into office? That's also a possibility that we can consider. So we have the provision for that. Of course, it's going to be an additional election. It's going to be additional cost. Is it necessary? Not necessary? Need to be discussed. These are things that can be done later. Not so urgent. We can put it to the later part of it so that this goes to the last stages of this strategy. I can't see the line. Where is that light? Can you see the light? Ah, there it is. Okay, there. So the last stage is where we do these things. Okay? So the thing I'm talking about here is how do we mature our democracy? We have a democracy, there's no doubt about it. We have a democratic process. How flawed it is another one. We want to talk about how to mature our democracy, because democracy is not static. Democracy is not a natural state. People naturally fall into either autocracy or aristocracy, even because it's natural to follow a leader. We talk about all people being equal, but that's not true. Some people are cleverer than others. Some people are more sneaky than others. Some people are more dishonest than others. People are not equal. Okay? Given that people are not equal, to expect the same behavior across the board is wrong. You know that the snake oil salesman with the one who's smooth oratory is the one who's going to move up in power because of his being able to get the voters to support him. So knowing that situation, knowing that the democracy is something which people have to learn, for example, people have to understand the process of democracy, it has to continuously evolve. You have to keep making the necessary changes in our system in order to make it work. Right? A young democracy has to be nurtured through the evolutionary process. This is what the people in South Africa have done. They've come out with, they've already gone through the earlier steps, now they're in the process of coming up with a strategic plan to take it to the next step. We're not ready for that yet. Those people have learned how to run, now they're learning to dance. We have forgotten how to walk, we have started to crawl. We've got to get back there again. We've got to read, we've got to undo, we've got to... Instruments and institutions of democracy need to be strengthened, which we have not done. We weaken them on the contrary. So we have to undo some of the damage before we can move forward. Which is why our strategic plan is rather different from what the South Africans have done. This is a common, it's another throwaway phrase. The future of our nation is in our hands. But the question I'm going to ask you is this. Is there any other group anywhere else in the country that's working on electoral reform? I don't think so. And if you don't do electoral reform, then how is the country going to move forward? So unless we get involved in the process, we do something that's going to make it work, electoral reform is not going to happen. There are some very important things that we need to do. First of all, the constituency deletation exercise that's been championed by Tindak Malaysia, you know about it. This involves two things. Okay, first of all, if the election commission comes up with a delimitation proposal that is not going to work, we have to stop them. If you don't stop them, then you're dead. How do you stop them? You've got to have enough people to object. Every constituency needs 100 objectors. If you don't have your 100 objectors, what the election commission proposes is going to go through. Please understand that. You must have, every constituency must have your 100 objectors. So those of you who are here from Klang Valley, fine, you got the message. Those from outside of Klang Valley, please take the message back to your constituencies. Those who are listening on your webcast, please take this message back to constituencies. Start your movement of getting your 100 objectors for every constituency ready, so that if of course, if the election commission comes out with a proposal that's great, nobody's going to object. That's wonderful. I mean, what a great way to go forward. But if they come forward with something that's not acceptable, we must have 100 objectors ready to stop them in their tracks. And having stopped them in their tracks, what's the next thing we got to do? We have to have our own answers ready. We must have our own delimitation ready. So we've got the mapping exercise that's going on, take it forward, we've got to do that. This is imperative. If we fail to do this, then we can forget about the rest of it. Okay, this is something we must do, this is imperative. Having done this, the other changes we can do, that's the whole thing. I don't expect you to be able to read this, but this is going to be available in soft copy. You ask the organizers, they will send you a PDF version of this. The other changes can be done, I think, reasonably by mid-2017, we should be able to complete them. And if we can successfully make those changes that we talk about here, then we can talk about the other areas of reform such as was done by South Africa. We might be able to deliver that by 2020, which means our 2020 vision is going to be to catch up with South Africa in a democratic process. But at least we've got something going, we can move forward. It is a step going forward rather than wondering what are we going to do next. So the thing today is, over the last couple of days, we've had a lot of ideas. We've got to bring those ideas together, focus them into an action plan. This is not necessarily the best action plan. This is a template that we can use to develop a functional, workable action plan that everybody agrees upon. Use that to move forward. My entire purpose of presenting this was to give us a working document. We can use this as a starting point, develop, take it forward, come up with a working plan. Everybody agrees on it. Later on, we start to disagree, then it's going to be pointless. We must at least come to an agreement on where we're going to move forward and use that to bring our democracy to the next stage. That's pretty much what I have to say. Thank you very much.